Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis, and welcome to the Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius. Thank you so much for joining me in the program for today, Thursday, February 29, 2024. It is 5 past the 11 o'clock hour. Joining me in the program today is Special Advisor in the Prime Minister's Office, Mr. Austin Edinburgh. Mr. Edinburgh, good morning.
Good morning, Devon.
Welcome back.
It's nice to be back as well with you.
Absolutely. We are going to get right into the conversation for today, Mr. Edinburgh, and of course we'll be facilitating calls. We have about, let's say, less than an hour, but I'm pretty confident we could get through what we want to discuss for today. The remuneration for members of the Federal Parliament of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we will be taking a look at some of the things that have taken place since 2022, mid-2022, up until now. I turn over to you.
Devon, I'm going to get straight to the point in addressing the situation regarding the increase in the parliamentarians' salary. And their salary, the basic pay, that's their salary. Anything else that they get, you're talking about they call it emoluments,
yes.
the additional for housing and things like that. That's not a part of their salaries. Those are allowances. Okay, now I want to begin by saying that when this St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party administration got into office, two senior persons in the services who had that responsibility brought to the attention of the Prime Minister that there was this review, which was already budgeted for and just needed to be activated by tabling the resolution in Parliament. The Prime Minister's position and that of his cabinet colleagues was that, okay, fine, we will get to it, but firstly, we have to look for the least among us. And so he decided, principally, that he wanted to see an increase in the minimum wage first. He spoke about a recalculation for the GAE long service gratuity. GAE being the government auxiliary workers or employees. Now, that is because it could have been sometime, maybe in 2021, thereabout, they had created a new formula of calculations, which means that persons who are retiring after that date got less than persons who retired previously with the same years and same condition of service. And he wanted to correct that. He also went to the GAE workers again because he wanted to ensure that when they finish working, that there was a pension in place for them. Even though a law was passed since 2012 to make them pensionable, it was never activated. And he spoke about a further increase for civil servants, because what was happening under the new plan, because it's a contributory plan, civil servants who before were godfathered, in other words, they made no contribution,
Right.
but they received a pension, would have now been asked to contribute to the pension. And again, remember I tell you that law was passed since 2012. And so he thought that it would be unfair to implement this and now ask them to go home with less than they were going home with before. And so he said that he would want to see a further increase for civil servants to compensate for that. That would have been just a 3% increase to ensure that they went home with the same or a little more if they had increments. But he also wanted to see, before he touched an increase for parliamentarians, some improvement in the economy. Let us remember that we went through COVID, and as a result of that, there was a really flatlining of the economy. He achieved all of those things. I also want you to know, and I want the people to know, Devonne, that this review was before the cabinet since 2019 and was approved by the cabinet since 2019. The process is that when the commission is finished, they will deliver the report to the Governor General. The Governor General will then pass it on to the cabinet. And once the cabinet approves it, it would then be tabled in Parliament. The consultative project part of this happens with the commission long before they submit the report.
So all that took place now was for the parliamentarians to vote on it, basically.
Vote on it, because all of the other steps were already completed. But the Prime Minister said, I am not moving that to the Parliament until the aforementioned things I spoke of were accomplished. And they were accomplished. Then, but he did more than just that. Well, before I get to that, there was also another report that the cabinet then, in 2019, accepted. And they had established a committee to review minimum wage. The committee came back with their report, and the recommendation was for no increase in the minimum wage. One of their main reasons, and it's a crowning reason, they gave other reasons, I don't have the report before me, but that one stood out in my mind. Because they said, at that time, after the calculations, the minimum wage worker were working for $10 per week more than they should have been working for, based on their calculations. Because remember, I think it was 2013 or 2014, the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party increased the minimum wage to $3.60 per week.
I think it was 2013.
So it was about somewhere between 5 and 6 years later. 5-6 years later, when they are doing another review, this committee is saying, or the committee then said, that in fact, what they got since 2013 was way above what they should have gotten, because up to 2019, they should have been working for less than they were working for. I'd like to make myself abundantly clear that no recommendation was made to the government to reduce the minimum wage, because you can't do it. When there's a law which states what the minimum wage was, you can't now just say you're going to take it back. And so there was no recommendation for that. But the reason was given. This was the crowning reason as to why there should be no increase at that time in 2019 in the minimum wage. The then government accepted it, because even though it's a committee that is established, it was chaired by a government employee, and this one wasn't. But I will say now that the first report that came back from the last committee, the majority of them said no increase. People wouldn't know that. That's why it took so long. And the Prime Minister, that is unacceptable. Go back, talk to the people, talk to more people,
So
become more inclusive.
This committee went back to the drawing board.
Exactly. Had they done what the previous government had done, previous administration, and just accept it, there would have been no increase. Now this time the reason was different. The reason that they gave was because the economy was now in recovery after COVID. And while they accept the fact that there is need for some review and some upward movement of the minimum wage, that the economy didn't allow it. There are two different reasons in terms of why, but that was not good enough for the Prime Minister and this administration. And so they asked them to go back and renegotiate, see how it can be done. Because, mind you, again, I'm going to make myself abundantly clear that it is not, the committee said a minimum wage increase was not deserving, because they did. What they were saying is that the economic condition did not allow for it. And so that was unacceptable to this administration, that there would be no movement upward in the minimum wage. Now, Devonne, there's a law that governs the commission. And I heard you the other day and you made reference to it.
Yes.
It says the Salary Reviews Commission Act of 2009, Chapter 22.14, provide for the establishment of a commission as titled by the Act, its functions as well as related of incidental matters. The Act calls for the appointment of 5 persons, a chairperson and 4 other members by the Governor General, and that such appointment be done after consultation with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. The law stipulates that the Commission shall every 3 years, with the approval of the Governor General, review the salaries and other conditions of service of the Governor General, members of Parliament, including the Speaker of the House, the Deputy Speaker of the House, Prime Minister, Attorney General, Ministers of Government, and Parliamentary Secretaries, also as referred to as Minister of State. The Leader of the Opposition and the other holders of such offices as may be prescribed, and make recommendations to the government accordingly. The report of the Commission concerning any review of salaries or other conditions of service, or both, shall be submitted to the Governor General, who shall forward a copy of the report to the Prime Minister for the presentation to the Cabinet and for laying as soon as possible after presentation to the Cabinet on the table of the National Assembly. This is the first commission appointed to serve under the new law. The previous review was done by a committee appointed by the Prime Minister in May 2005. All recommended amendments to the parliamentary remunerations in the report of 2005 were adopted. The remunerations have remained unchanged since 2005. You know, I read all of that so that people understand that the parliamentarians are not to be involved in public consultation about the increase in pay.
A suggestion was made for as you said, that it should have been a public consultation.
The law gives the Commission the authority to consult I am not here to second guess how they did it, because they could have well had public consultations. Let me also point out that in 2005, when the Prime Minister appointed the commission, one of the criticisms was that the commission was appointed by a parliamentarian. There was no law saying otherwise. Hence, the change in the law in 2009. That is a then government who listened to the public and who addressed that concern, so that the next time there would have been a review, it would have been in keeping with what the public wanted, a commission appointed by the Governor General. And so that is what happened. But now I'm going to get back to what was accomplished. All of the aforementioned, the minimum wage, the recalculation of the GA long service gratuity, the pension, further increase in civil servants, as a matter of fact, that went up to 8%. So apart from the 3%, there was a better off situation for the civil servants with an additional 5% to take home. Additionally, there was the payment of 2 dividends from the CBI savings. The thresholds were 250 and 500, and that is if you had paid less than 500 contributions, you would receive 250, and if you had paid 500 and above, you would receive 500. Again, people who do not understand these things. If the view of the majority, and there's nothing wrong with what they recommended, was carried, some people wouldn't have gotten. Some people would have gotten less than 200 because they had more tiers. Again, it's a consultation between the government and the committee that it set up.
There's an argument that, and we were having this conversation, with the salaries increase, people who I'm pretty sure did not even do a study of the economy are suggesting that the economy is not in a position to support the salary increase for parliamentarians. My question is, the list that you just mentioned, the increase in minimum wage, pension for GAE workers, recalculation of the GAE long service gratuity, payment of dividend, and the list goes on.
And there was also an independence gift,
so what
a
does
workers'
that
bonus. That is an improvement in the economy. And this last one, Devonne, that he did, or that him and his government, his cabinet did, for the young citizens of our country between 5 and 18 years, is unprecedented. It's unmatched. And the rest of the Caribbean is speaking about it, where a saving stroke investment portfolio was established for our young citizens between the ages of 5 and 18. Let me tell you one of the things that happens when there's no improvement in the economy. Private sector entity don't pay no dividends. Because they can't pay dividends, because they would have suffered a loss. It could have been more catastrophic. It could have been an operational loss, but they would have suffered a loss big enough that they do not pay dividend.
But you had private sector companies paying dividends.
Of course, of course. Dividends were paid, and if you and the thing is that you only have to, once they are public companies, called, private public, they have to publish their statements.
Yes.
And their statements should have Hosford's, TDC,
Bank of Nevis.
Bank of Nevis, National Bank, all of them showed that there was an increase. Once those things happen, there's an improvement in the economy that caused that. And the next IMF report will show that there has been improvement in our economy. And so the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, with his cabinet, determined that, okay, now we need to address this. Now, here's why they need to address it, apart from anything else. And the report came in 2019. So if it was completed in 2019, let's use the date when it was submitted, 2020, 2021, 2022, they would have had to establish another commission. Because the law says so.
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Yeah.
However, COVID came along, and in my opinion, it was a justifiable reason for the previous administration not to move ahead on it. And so I would take those years out. And so you have 2021. I would go up from 2021. In 2022, December, in the budget, this increase was estimated for. So it had to form a part of the public discussions. So how could a political party come now and say there was no public discussions? When they were a part of a government that passed a budget with the inclusion of this. So are they saying that they went somewhere up in the mountain or over out to sea on a yacht?
But the report mentions private sector representatives who were part of the discussion.
Of course. No, I'm just saying that I have to go there because when people are looking for just political reasons to criticize something, especially something that they themselves intended to, it did not form a part of the campaign. They knew very well CCM, PAM, and PLP, because they were part of the discussion and placing it in the budget. And that's where they would have a lot of discussions before. And so for them, none of the three to raise it on the election campaign, to say, well, this is there, but we won't do it, tells me that any of the three, if they were in government, intended to implement it straight after. As a matter of fact, the intention was for this to be operationalized at the first sitting of an assembly in 2023. That was the intention. That's why it went into the budget.
Okay.
But shortly thereafter, the government began to implode. And one of the ministers, and who is the deputy leader of PAM, said, and I don't like to quote them, but I'm going to quote him this time.
I saw the
He said
statement.
that, you know, had it not been for one man, this would have already happened. And, okay, so I commend him for speaking the truth. But the point is that to come and say that the time is not right, the economy today is better than the economy was in August of 2023, 2022. It's better than it was. As a matter of fact, it's in 2021 that it went in, sorry. 2021, that December. for the 2022 budget. It is better than it was in August of 2022. And so if it is better now, how could you say, when you intended to implement it, that the economic condition doesn't allow it? Now, there's something I want to also point out. Over the period since 2005, up until just Thursday last, 22nd I think it was.
Yes.
There has been an accumulative amount of 41% increase to the civil servants, while parliamentarian remained the same.
From 2005.
From 2005. Hence, an anomaly was created, which anywhere in the world would be corrected. Unless there was a specific skill that they are going to pay for, and it's normally for a short term. Nobody who works as a part of a system, whether it's a company or otherwise, nobody who works and who's on the payroll of the company works for more than the executive branch of the company. That is normal. And so the anomaly definitely needed adjusting. But for me, that's not a compelling reason, and that was not the compelling reason.
Okay.
The point is that we are now due to reactivate the commission. 2021 to 2022, 2022 to 2023, 2023 to 2024. If this did not happen now, and you were to reactivate the commission, who would definitely have had to take this into consideration, two things could have happened. They could have said, okay, we will just resubmit this report.
Okay.
And let the increase remain as was recommended.
Because it's just a review. It's not to suggest that every 3 years you're going to increase.
No. It's a review.
Just a review.
The next thing could have happened, though, is that this committee would say, well, this commission said, well, okay, this was in 2019. Mm-hmm. So it's 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, going into 5 years later. And we think that it should go up by an additional 5%. Mm-hmm. That could have happened as well. And so you could have either had this come back in the same, or you could have had an increase on what this report said. Those things are possible. But you cannot now just ignore this report, because the time according to the law is upon us to reconstitute the commission for another review. These are laws. These are not regulations that that cabinet can change, because regulations don't need to go to parliament.
Right.
These are laws. And the government, in my opinion, the administration, is without a doubt obliged to follow the laws. Not just this one, but every law. Because if you don't, then you're not leading by example.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Edinburgh, we have to take a break. It's 11:34. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. For those of you who are just tuning in, you're listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio, 96.1 FM. And joining me in studio today is Special Advisor to the Prime Minister, in the Prime Minister's Office, Mr. Austin Edinburgh. We'll take this break. Stay tuned.
is unknown. Protect your life, your family, and your valuables from unforeseen circumstances. Let National Caribbean Insurance give you the peace of mind that you so deserve. At NCI, we offer a suite of affordable insurance plans that can be tailored to ease your financial burden. We aim to deliver exceptional products to satisfy all your insurance needs. Whether life, health, motor, or property insurance, NCI has the right solution for you. Our friendly and knowledgeable sales professionals are ready and able to assist you. Let National Caribbean Insurance Company Limited help you to prepare for the unexpected. We serve, we protect, we satisfy. That's NCI.
Every day in a busy world, we have to do so much. Bank with CIBC and get that personal touch. Share your ambitions, let us help your dreams come true. At CIBC, you're at the heart of all we do. We're on your side, we're listening, we know the way you feel. CIBC, ambitions made real.
Welcome back to the Edge here in ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. We are on the topic of the remuneration for parliamentarians of the Federal Parliament of St. Kitts and Nevis. So, regarding the report for the salaries for the members of Parliament, there was a consultation had with the private sector and civil society. And I'll read for you the representatives or the bodies that were included in the consultation. So that is the former Governor General, the Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the President and members of the Board of Directors of the St. Kitts Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the Chair and members of the Nevis Division of the St. Kitts Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the President of the Bankers Association, members of the board of the Credit Union League, the president and executive members of the St. Kitts and Nevis Trades and Labor Union, the president of the United Workers Union, the chair of the People's Action Movement, the chair of the Concerned Citizens Movement, the chair and members of the People's Labour Party, the president and vice president of the St. Kitts and Nevis Christian Council, the president and members of the Evangelical Association, CARICOM Youth Ambassador, president of the Bar Association. And the public sector representatives included the financial secretary, the chief personnel officer, the director of audit, permanent secretary and chief education officer for the Ministry of Education, permanent secretary for the Ministry of Labor, and the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Legal Affairs. The parliamentarians included the ministers of government, prime minister, speaker, and deputy speaker of the House of the Parliament.
That's an exhaustive list. I thought they said there was no. I thought they said there was no public consultation. Mm-hmm. But this showed that there was wide public consultation, because it is only the commission that could have those public consultation. The only thing that the parliamentarians in Parliament, and I wouldn't say parliamentarians, the elected members, the only thing that they can do with this resolution is to turn it down or accept it. And I'm glad you read that list, Devonne. So the political things that they're looking for to criticize. And there's one thing, there's something that stands out there. To me, that neither the chair, the leader of the opposition, nor political leader of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party embraced the opportunity to be consulted. I don't want anybody to say I'm saying that they were not contacted, because they were. They did not participate. And so what came out had nothing in terms of a contribution from the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. But they are now seemingly want to be blamed for the increase, the amount of the increase. They were not involved in saying yea or nay in the consultative process to what the figures would be. But the same people, politically, or some of the same people, sorry, politically, who were involved in that process, in arriving at the figure, now giving the impression as if this is something that this new government has just taken upon themselves and give themselves this large increase. They are the ones who said this is what it should be. And they said this is what it should be in 2018 and 2019 when the consultative process was taking place. The St. Kitts Nevis Trades and Labour Union was involved. And of such is a part of that decision in terms of the consultative process. You know, it amazes me, Devonne. I mean, I'm a political person, and so I understand politics.
Yes.
And if I talk,
Yes.
you can say it is political. I won't hold anybody accountable for it. But the point is, Devonne, I don't need to lie to make a political point. I've never done it, and will never do it. If I have reasons to support, I will say what those reasons are. If I have reasons to disagree, I will say what those reasons are. I will try to be as compelling as I can in my reasons. That's the way I advance my political discourse. And I will continue to do so.
It's 11:43. Let's begin to take some calls at 465-2555 or 718-5772-916. Callers, let's be mindful of other callers. Pose your question and let's try to take as much as we can. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Devonne.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. And you guest in there, Mr. Edinburgh.
Good morning.
Yeah. With all those, what you call them, the organization that Devonne read out to see about this salary thing that you're talking about. I do not believe that those people who you said never take part is true. I do not believe so. And that is my belief. Because you won't tell me Devonne read out so many organizations who concern, who had the right to see about this salary business, and the amount of people you said did not take part, something wrong. I do not believe it. That's my thing. Thank you very much.
I'll share with you, caller, right? That this report that I have here was signed, and I'll mention their names.
Yes, of course.
Their signature is here.
It's a public
It was signed by Howard McCrane, sorry, as the chairman, Dr. H. Brown, QC.
Casey now.
Casey. I gotta get accustomed to that. Dr. Arnaldo Bailey, Mr. F. Maitland, and Mrs. They forgot the first names of some of them. Mrs. B. John. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people signed this, and this is a mixture of accountants, lawyers, business people.
Let me hang up. I'll listen to you.
All right, caller. Thank you for your contribution.
But this is what I'm saying, Devon, and that's why I'm glad you. Okay.
You have another caller. Yeah. Let's take the call. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Devon,
yes.
And also to your guest. A National Day of Prayer, blessed day to everyone. A lot of great things are happening in St. Kitts, wonderful. But on this salary review, there is a bit of a problem, and you're going to get this blowback from the citizens for some time to come, I believe. Now, it has been said before, and so it needs to be reiterated. You had to struggle to get an increase for minimum wage workers, and you gave them in two parts, at least in two parts. And the maximum they will get over the 2 years is an increase of $560 a month. In the same country, you are giving to the top leaders an increase of several $1,000s per month. Now, in principle, generally speaking, depending on how it is, it may not be all bad. But you have to look at the country in its entirety. There was a sort of comparison made with other countries, saying it's the salary before this increase, the Prime Minister would have been getting, for example, 3 times the amount of the average salary, not per capita income, but average salary. And in some other countries, it goes up to 5 times. In Suriname, it's 80 times. Those people are way out of whack, but think it was doing pretty well at 3. You had Antigua with just 2 times the salary. It's more or less the same salary before this increase of our Prime Minister, and 2 times the average. Now, continuing, if I could just finish, then I can think. However, at the end of the day, and I must say, I listened, that you have referred to it, the AG gave a very comprehensive, seemingly persuasive argument for the increases, and Mr. Edinburgh has also mentioned some of these things, and those are good to take into account, and also the persons who are involved, that is also good to take into account. So no problem with that. However, timing and amount at this time is a problem, I think, for many people, and in part because the people who are paying these representatives are taxpayers, and the taxpayers come from all levels. Because the personal income tax was abolished in 1980. We do not pay personal income tax, which would have allowed those who are richer to pay more and those who are less rich or who are poorer to pay nothing or less. As a result of which, they had to put on what you call indirect taxes to make up the income for the revenues for the government, your import duties, etc. So just to conclude here, and that is to say, that based on that, you have to take into account the people in the country. You can't just say those on top, they are the brightest, the rich thing, they do the most work in 24 hours. Everybody is doing a lot of work. So timing.
Caller.
Yes.
We have to take some more calls.
Yes.
Wrap it up. Thank you for your contribution.
Right. Thank you. I'll just simply say that they could have staggered it and maybe do it in 2 or 3 takes.
Thank you, caller, so much. We gotta be mindful of the other callers, man. Let's take this other call quickly. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yes, a pleasant good morning to you, Mr. Devonne.
Yes, good morning.
And your guest there. Today is National Day of Prayer, right? Okay. Well, I don't think prayer and the lawyer can work. The lawyer that what they're telling us at the radio station, I don't think he's going to work with the prayer.
Let me stop you right there. I find that you don't know your place. And I will not tolerate any disrespect from any caller. I don't have to come here to tell any lies to anybody. I have a report in front of me that was signed by at least 5 people with their signatures affixed to it. For you to come here and try to disrespect people, I will not accept it. Let's head back to the phone lines and we'll take some more calls. Time is against us. Let's take one last call. We have a caller?
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Stam.
Good morning. Welcome to the program.
And to Mr. Edinburgh. I'd like to know from Mr. your guest here. You had a minister by the name Sir Robert Llewellyn Bratcher. He was in government and he had ministers under him. Do he ever give any of your ministers an increase like what you're giving your ministers? Have a good day.
All right. Thank you so much, caller, for your contribution to the program. Mr. Edinburgh, we have 10 minutes. We have to wrap up at 12. So
yes, that's no problem. So let me just address a few things. The first thing I wish to address is time. I pointed out a number of things that were done that the government said they wanted to do. And the fact that there's an improvement, none of that particular quarter, the female, she has not addressed any of those things. I would hear her when she said there could have perhaps, and I would say perhaps in 2 phases, not 3. That is a reasonable way of looking at it. It is reasonable. But that does not mean that this increase is wrong. And this increase was not determined, because this is the misnomer, this is the falsehood, inadvertently, I believe, that she and others are making. This increase is not something that the parliamentarian gave to themselves. It is not. And you read the list of persons that were consulted on this particular matter. And so you have a situation where the Prime Minister and his cabinet decided what they would like to do for the least among us. First, it was done. And they addressed a report that was completed in 2019. I want to say that in no firm, and I am going to go back to it, I said it before, in no firm, the persons who work lower down makes more than the executive branch. It doesn't happen in this world. It does not happen. And so persons who are within the executive branch has far greater responsibilities. They utilize their time far more because they are there 8 to 4 as the junior staff is. But they have to travel and have meetings on Sundays and have meetings up until midnight sometime and more. The responsibility of governance, whether it is public or private, is far greater than that of a line worker. And so it's unfair for you to compare what the executive branch is making for governance and what the middle of the road, middle managers and line workers are making. And I want to say that in this dispensation, the senior supervisors or senior managers, they're making nearly what the executive branch is making. And so I made mention of the anomaly that happened because of the increase. So I want to ask this lady a question. Should the government over the period of time not have given an increase to the ordinary people? Should the government not have fought for an increase in the minimum wage? Because if you are saying, and one thing that we don't take into consideration, Devonne, is that the amount collectively, accumulatively, that the mass would make based on a small increase is sometimes far greater in terms of quantity than the executive, which is smaller, would make. Those are things that need to be taken into consideration.
And it probably mightn't see it because, again, it took place over a period of time, but when you put all of that together, it is significant.
It is significant.
Mr. Edinburgh, we have 5 minutes left, but I wanted to close with this for the record. People need to be aware. This is not a report that was fabricated. And I'm going to call the names again. And they would have to come and say that I am lying on them. Right? Help with the last name. You said Howard McAcrane, Chartered Accountant. Dr. Henry Brown, KC, barrister at law and legal advisor. Dr. Arnaldo Bailey, banking and finance consultant. Mrs. Brenda John, a business consultant, and Mr. Franklin Maitland, a chartered accountant. Their signatures are on this piece of document here.
Certainly.
Their signatures are affixed to this document.
And it says,
and I leave it there.
Cabinet should take effect as of July 1. Implementation of the recommendation, if adopted without amendments by Cabinet, should take effect July 1, 2019. It is there in black and white, you know. It is there in black and white. And so we're talking about 2024. And yet it is a figure or figures that were determined adequate for 2019 that is still being used today. And so I want to, in closing, say, I think that the government, taking all into consideration and ensuring that there was an increase in the minimum wage, that there was a recalculation of the GAE long service gratuity, that the GAE workers for the first time had become pensionable, that there was a further increase to civil servants, an improvement in the economy, along with the payment of dividend for all of us, independence gift, workers' bonus, and far more important for me, in our young citizens, they've turned them into business owners. A government that does that before it looks after its own members of government by implementing a salary review did well. And I commend them on that effort.
Thank you, Mr. Edinburgh. We are out of time. Until next time, you guys stay safe. Continue to enjoy the rest of your day. You've been listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM for Thursday, February 29, 2024. I am Devonne Cornelius. Take care.